Welcome and thank you for tuning in to the True Crime Auction House podcast. This is episode 10. I'm your host, as always, Andrew. I'd like to introduce today's guest, Casey Tillman of the Horror Stash. Casey, how are you doing today?
Oh, not too bad, Andrew. Just another day in paradise, living the dream.
Nice. That's good to hear. Well, I'm going to switch it up a little bit this time, and I'm going to have you introduce yourself and talk about everything you do and everything you're into in between the horror and murderabilia.
Sure. Okay. Well, my name's Casey Tillman, and I am actually the creator of the Horror Stash. I'm on YouTube currently, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all the social media outlets. I've been on social media for a few years now under the name The Horror Stash, but I'm also into true crime collecting, murderabilia, if you will. So, feel free to come, visit the social media pages. I just created an Instagram account for my true crime collecting passion, specific to collecting true crime memorabilia. That's on Instagram. That's Casey's True Crime Collection. Casey's _true_crime_collection. Check that out. I think your guest here, Andrew, would probably like to go check that out and, see what all the different oddities and weird.
Right. Another page to creep on and look at.
Yeah.
Random...
If you're on this site, then that's probably something you might want to check out.
Right. And who doesn't want to stay up till like 3 a.m. looking up things about serial killers? I know everybody does. I do.
Oh yeah. I mean, is it strange to lay in bed and think of that before you fall asleep? I mean,
yeah. Like I tell people, like I stay up till like 3 a.m. like on Murderpedia, just looking up random cases and facts, and like it's just like that's what I go to sleep to.
Yeah, that's half the fun. I mean, that's what I do. I mean, all around that's what draws me into it is the cases behind some of these crimes.
Right.
That's what's so fascinating and intriguing about the whole thing.
Right, and the research. I mean, there's so much research. I mean, especially if it's an old case, there's news articles and just so much you can go through. Like the guys that I visit, like I've been doing so much research on them lately. Like I just learned a few new things last night about a guy that I talked to, and I can't wait for him to call me so I can tell him, like, I just learned this, and this. And
oh yeah. I mean, that's the older cases, the older crimes, the OGs, if you will. They're the ones that I'm actually really more, attracted to and interested in. The Gacy's, the Bundys, the Dahmers, all the ones that
the quote unquote golden age serial killers.
Yeah, I don't write to inmates. I know I've mentioned that to you before, but if I was alive, if I was into this back then, when I'm young, I'm 35 years young, so I was real young when there was Dahmer and all these out, but that would be they would be the type of people that I would want to write to, because I would, it's fascinating. Nowadays, it's just, it's not the same. It's hard to describe, but it's just, it's not the same. Those were the originals back then. And this day and age, it's not like it was. People, first of all, they get caught before they get too far nowadays with all the true, the special crimes units and all these different things.
You got Ancestry.com, you got Forensic and all that, so
how about that stuff too? Yeah. Anything
pretty much the day and age of serial killers being not caught for a while, like a long time, new guys is nearly impossible with all the technology and DNA testing and all that.
Shit, they could throw a piece of gum out a car window, and next thing you know, the police are knocking at their door. They got everything on them. They got their saliva, their DNA, they got everything, and they're bringing them in.
Yeah.
Back then, it was, even with on the, law enforcement side, detective side, they actually had to do some real crime work. They had to put things together, put pieces to the puzzle, and it, to actually capture or catch some of these people. it's totally different back then than it is now. And I'm talking like I know, but I mean, I study a lot of this and I do a lot of research. I'm always watching ID channel, you know. I'm sure you do too.
Right. Yeah, binge watching it.
But yeah, it's really nice to hear some of the, the other collectors and, people that you've interviewed and, and hear, what, they're a little bit more seasoned, I guess you could say. And they, it's just a different time. You can even pick that up from the way they speak about it. It was just a different time and age than it is now. But to me, it's still fun. I'm in the collecting part of it. I don't sell. So, I really enjoy collecting and putting displays together and just, showcasing these pieces.
Right. Yeah, I know that. And I know we've talked about that before and like myself, when you sell something, you want to either replace what you have or something for, greater than what it was. So, I guess you talked about not writing inmates, but you only like buy, trade, and sell when you rarely do sell. So and I know you're for the death penalty, right? So and I know we've talked about this before, but what's the reasoning for not writing and just buying, like, I know a lot of people can, buy a painting for, $200, but you send an inmate like $20-$30, they'll send it to you. But I know a lot of people are wary of, contacting a serial killer or, pedophile or rapist. And I understand that, like I get all that.
Yeah, sure. I can say I did write to one inmate a couple years back. So it's not like I never did write an inmate, but I did write one when I first started getting into, collecting and into just the true crime genre. I didn't even know there was even a true crime collecting world. I mean, it was like I started collecting horror memorabilia about 10 years ago. Everything from action figures to posters to, DVDs, everything you can think of, anything related to horror. I was, at yard sales, I was on eBay, spending money. I created this whole man cave, thus the horror stash of everything horror. And then I did, branch off into true crime collecting, and then I kind of found a new passion. I did start writing to a guy named Craig Titus, and he was a professional bodybuilder back in the early 90s, and he got involved in a love triangle with his wife and a personal trainer that was actually working out with the two of them. And they had this love triangle going on where he would be with his wife, he would be with this trainer, female. And long story short, the wife and him decided to murder the love triangle, cut that end off. And I believe it was out in, I want to say, Arizona area. They basically tased her and suffocated her with a bag or something like that, took her in the car out into the desert and lit the car up on fire, and she was in the trunk. And, it ended up, they just did some detective work, and they found out that, they had camera footage from a Walmart or something like that. Wife had bought some lighter fluid, which they used to light the car up. And, so they ended up apprehending them and putting two and two together very quickly. But the thing with it was, I'm into bodybuilding and weightlifting, and this guy would be somebody that, I would want to actually talk to, because it's not because he had murdered somebody. That's not it at all. I mean, it kind of helps a little bit. It's fascinating to me, but at the same time, I wanted to kind of touch base with him and see about his bodybuilding career. And, this guy had the world by the balls back in the day, and to do something so heinous and monstrous and to throw, a career, he could have been, he was already a celebrity. He could have been, he was already making thousands of dollars. I mean, big house, couple cars, just to throw it all away. Now, I know he was on drugs and things like that. So that probably contributes to altering your mind and the way you think and everything. but that was someone that I wanted to actually, talk to as far as getting into his head and maybe even getting some workout tips from the guy. But that correspondence didn't last too long because I didn't know that there's certain things about writing people as far as, you can't, I was offering to put money on his JPay and stuff like that. And whoever controls, the system at that particular prison he wasn't even getting the letter. He was getting that there was something coming for him from me, but they weren't even letting him read my letters because it did have something that, almost like a quid pro quo type of deal. Like, you can't give him money, you can't offer. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you would know better than me. So after that, I just decided I didn't want to write anybody. And it's also time consuming. I don't really have the time to.
Right. Yeah, it is time consuming.
Yeah, because I have friends that are in this genre here, and they tell me, they say, Casey, if I could do it all over again, I wouldn't write. I'd just do what like you do, and buy your collectibles, and not even get mixed up in this with writing, because then they get mad if you don't write them back right away, or then there's all kinds of different things. I even had a buddy of mine that the FBI showed up at his house because they thought he was corresponding with an international, felon, and he was just trying to correspond. He wasn't trying to be involved in any kind of activities, any kind of stuff like that. But I mean, that's the type of stuff that I don't want any parts of, So right. I might spend a little bit more money to get what I want, but I'm not. I don't have any kind of crazy letters come to my house, or, God forbid someone gets out one day and wants to come visit me or something. Yeah, it's just better just for me to kind of stay away. That's the way I look at it. I mean, I'm not, like I told you this before, I think a lot of these guys and girls are, they're monsters. They're just plain monsters. And some of the stuff they do and did is just, it's like a nightmare. It's like an actual horror movie, like a real life horror movie. And it's strange because I collect the stuff and I like the artwork and I like the cases, but at the same time I have that separation where I don't kind of want to be too close to something like that.
Right.
So,
and it's funny you mentioned that is like you say, I know you said before, like you don't have anything in common with them, and whatnot, but it's funny, like I'll talk to quite a few of them and we'll have so much in common. It's scary, it's like, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, and I'm just talking from my point of view, because maybe if I did write to some of them, maybe it would change my outlook a little bit. They are human, they are people, and people do change, and I understand that. But at the same time, it's almost like a false relationship is what it is. I mean,
obviously, like you wouldn't be like, they know, they know. If they hadn't killed a bunch of people or done this or that, you wouldn't be corresponding with them. And
right, and that's the thing. And I don't. Now, if I was a seller or dealer of this type of collecting and this type of hobby, that would be one thing. If this was my source of making money, yeah, I would create. I'd say I was a fake name. I mean, I'd probably be one of the dirtiest of dirty, because you make a buck, you make some money out of it.
But the funny thing with that is there's not honestly much money in it. I mean, I know the market is the slowest it's ever been, as of this year, but I know that there's like some people that come into this to make money. That I'm like, what money? the money is in like the high end, like artwork, like Gacy's and people that are dead, like. Because nobody's paying, hundreds of dollars for letters for people that are alive. And if they are, it's, people like Kemper or Ridgway or, like, to me, I just write honestly because I'm genuinely interested in, like the people that I do write, I write them on the, premises of I want to visit them one day. And, I'm visiting 3 new people in July at San Quentin, and I'm going to be going, taking a few different trips and visiting. Like, it's interesting, fascinating to me, and that's what I enjoy the most is the visits, the nervous feeling and like the jitters.
Yeah, and I'm sure it is because, I mean, you're standing next to or in the same room with and even putting your arm around somebody that is, I call them, this is going to sound a little crazy, but I call them anti-heroes. They are celebrities, but they're celebrities for the wrong reason.
Oh
And,
yeah, definitely.
yeah,
I mean, they
I mean,
like
powerful feeling.
glamorized pedophiles, Richard Ramirez, Ted Bundy. I guess now we can add Bill Cosby to that list. Who else? Jerry Sandusky. The list goes on and on and on. Jared from Subway.
Well, and that takes us all the way back to the cases. I mean, a lot of this deep-seated stuff it's kind of, a lot of them are sexually related, like Bundy, Gacy. It's almost like it starts out as like a sexual type of fetish type of deal. And I've even heard in Gacy's case before that the only reason why he murdered all those teenagers and young adults was he didn't want his secret of him being gay or bisexual out in the public. So, I guess he started off one teenager. And once that happens one time, you figure, well, in his mind, he probably figured, well, I might as well keep on going with it. The dead can't talk. So, it all starts somewhere. Then for them, from what I understand, it just gets out of control. It just goes to no end. And then a lot of them, they kind of want to get caught, in a sick type of way, because then their notoriety goes up. BTK, Dennis Rader, he would have been, I mean, I think he wanted to get caught, because how stupid could he be to send a church disc to the police department or news or whatever he sent it to, and think that they couldn't trace anything off of that. I mean, he just literally shot himself in the foot. He could have went down as almost like another Zodiac type of situation, but look at him now,
Right. Yeah, I've talked about him a few times on my podcast, and just how crazy it is. The guy's, manipulative liar, and this guy.
I mean, it's like he wanted to get caught. I mean,
or he thought he was so cocky enough that they were
him up. I'm actually staring at a display right in front of me on my wall, so that's why I kind of brought him up. But yeah, I mean, but this is what attracts me to the whole true crime collecting world is, how can, first of all, some of these crimes be committed, what drives a person to do some of these things? And second of all, after they get captured, then, sometimes they're crying like little babies, they can't own up to the fact of what they've done, or they're claiming innocent, or they flip-flop back and forth. I was watching a Gerald Schaefer interview, and he was flopping back and forth. 1 minute he's talking about gloating how he's a better killer than Ted Bundy. He has more kills. And then the next breath he's saying he's innocent. I mean, it's like, well, which is it? Or do you want the notoriety, or are you innocent? Or is this just it? Are they just some of them just so whacked out that they don't know what the hell they are? You know what I mean?
Right.
I just like the whole hobby of collecting. And to go back to the money part of it, I know you said there's not really money in it, unless it's the older, Gacy artwork or something like that. Well, you got to figure too, there's a lot of new people getting into the hobby. I know it's slow right now, but I mean, I have people contacting me like, hey, if you ever want to sell that, let me know. And not a lot of people know what this stuff is worth. It took me a while and a lot of coaching from people such as yourself and others that have helped me learn what's worth something and what's overpriced and what can be traded. I mean, it's like any other hobby, like collecting sports cards or something like that. You got to kind of know what's worth something and what's not worth something, or as much as someone wants for something. So it's a business down to the roots. It really is. And You kind of
Yeah,
got
but
to.
sometimes it's kind of hard to price some things, like really, like especially unique things like somebody's hair, fingernails, like dick tracing, like something like obscure or like just very bizarre. Like they always say, especially pertaining to like oddities, but especially murderabilia, something is worth what someone will pay. Like a Gacy might be worth $4,000 or $5,000, but are you going to find somebody in this day and age that's going to pay $4,000 or $5,000 for a Gacy?
Right, right. Yeah, and like, I mean, if it's a one of a kind piece, of course it's going to be, you know, some people would look at it as being worth more than most because it is a one of a kind, whatever it may be. But there is some high rollers in this hobby that will spend that kind of money to get something in their collection that maybe they don't have. I know I've with a few items. I've some of them I know I paid well over the price that I should have paid, but it's the fact that, like you said, it's what someone's willing to pay, and if the seller's not willing to budge, and you really want the piece, then you kind of either A, let it go, or B, bite the bullet and just, spend the money to get it. So it all depends on the clientele of, who's buying and who it is.
Right. And there's a lot of things that do sell and don't sell. Like letters tend to sit for a very long time. But I don't write people to sell letters again. Like I write people to, if I'm writing somebody, I'm not going to be selling their letters if I'm actively talking to them, as that creates complications in the relationship down the road.
Right. And, I hear that from a lot of different people that, collectors that write to people. I've been told plenty of times that they don't sell any of their correspondence. They will sell other people's correspondence, but they call it their like keeper collection. And, it's like private to them. It is. It literally is, I guess, a relationship between the two pen pals. And, I've heard them say, I'll sell other people's letters, but, my letters are for me and they stay in a folder or a binder or whatever. And, that's pretty cool too, because you spend a lot of time and effort, corresponding with somebody. And I know people really do form relationships. Maybe that's another reason why I don't want to get involved in the writing aspect, because, I don't want to get involved in forming a relationship, something like that. It's just, maybe that's in the back of my mind too,
Right. Yeah. I mean, I only talk to one guy that I actually, tell like personal things to. The rest I really don't. But you gotta put yourself in check sometimes. Like I know I do. I'll be talking to this guy and we'll be having a normal conversation that I gotta think in the back of my mind, like, okay, this dude killed like 14 women in a 6-month old like fetus. I gotta put that in the back of my mind. Like, okay, you gotta separate that, the emotions and it's a trip sometimes when thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, and see, that's where I think I would have an issue, because I would have whatever the case crime is, I would have that constantly, in the back of my mind while I'm on the phone with the person or writing,
Right.
or
Especially, it's you personalize it. Like you do develop personal relationship with some of these guys. Like I might be a dealer, but I do have like relationships with some of them, but I only consider one that I talk to a lot, that I would consider a quote unquote friend, and not like friend in in very, very loose terms.
right, like on a more personal level rather than.
Yeah, I know writing isn't for everybody, and not only is it time consuming, but I know a lot of people will get worried. And you mentioned the FBI earlier. They've called me quite a few times, and it's every time it's just like, oh man, what now? Like, no, I'm not a terrorist. No, I'm not doing this. No, I'm not gonna blow up this. Like, but
Exactly.
I know that they got to follow up, because I know that I'm on a list. So I'm like, man, I might as well make the best of it. Like I'm writing, this guy convicted of, like terrorism and spies and this and that. Like if I'm going to be on a list that they're going to watch me, I'll make it worthwhile, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and like you said, they got to follow up on it, and once they clear it, then you're good.
Right.
But they
Like
got.
when Nadal Hassan, the Fort Hood shooter, when he was in jail, the FBI called me in 2010, like a few months after he was arrested, and it was when Obama was still president, and they asked me like questions. Do you hate your president? What do you think about the flag? Do you hate your country? And I was like, no, I'm not a terrorist. I just am fascinated by true crime and reached out to the dude, blah, blah, blah. And it's happened a few other times with a few other people, Dylan Roof being one. And, you know, everybody always asks me, like, how's Dylan doing? I'm like, I wrote the dude one time. Everybody assumes we're like best friends or whatever. It's like, no, it was just he was just another person I wrote to, and that was that. And
Right.
but,
Yeah, see, I don't need those kind of headaches.
yeah.
I just rather buy a Dylan Roof letter from someone and not even worry about going the other way around. So, I mean, that's just, and I guess that's a different variety of collectors in this hobby. You got the buyers and the sellers and the traders. I know some people that don't buy or sell, they only trade.
Right. Then you have the recluses who don't hardly talk to anybody, and there's a whole like sub species, I guess you could say, of like different people that collect. And I mean,
or they'll pop out of nowhere.
It brings the eccentric people out of the woodwork, you know. So I've met a lot of interesting, you know, cool, like very nice people, and I've also met a few like shady people. But you know, for every bad person, there's probably like 20, 30 good people that I've met in this hobby. So
oh yeah, I'd second that. I mean,
I continue to meet, you know, nice, you know, like cool people and people that you know, trust.
That's to me, that's what it's all about. Like I formed so many relationships within the past couple of years, even with dealers. I mean, people that sell the true crime and memorabilia. I mean, I got a few very good dealer friends, and I say friends because they've always been very respectful to me. If I bought something, it was always shipped right away. But I know there's a lot of head clashing in this hobby too. A lot of people, especially the dealers, I'm sure I'm not preaching to the choir to you, but I'm sure you know, a lot of them just butt heads. They don't want to have anything to do with each other. I guess it's just like any other business. It's almost like the tattoo business as well. I was told before that, you know, the tattoo industry is the same way. You know, they all they all involved in the same type of business, but it's almost like people are stepping on each other's toes and things like that. Like you said, with every one or two bad, uncomfortable person you meet, you got like 30 of them behind that are like really cool, like very helpful and friend material. You know, I even had a friend that I've been talking to for a couple of years now. He came and visited me here at my house. You know, I'd actually talked to the guy on the phone a couple times a week now, and it's like, you know, really good relationship formed from just this hobby, you know.
Huh, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've met a few people in person from this hobby. I think like 3, actually 4 now. So it's pretty cool, and I continue to meet people as I travel to random states to visit or check scenes out or whatever it may be. But
collecting, having fun with it, it's not about money and everything. You know, I know some people, it is about money to them, but like for me, it's about sharing my collection with others, getting new things, and just corresponding with with like-minded people in the culture. You know what I mean? For me, that's exactly what it is. If you could sum up this whole interview, that's what it is: forming new relationships and showcasing, you know, my collection with others and sharing with others. You know.
right. And it's always cool to see something. It's like, man, I want something like that, and then you get it, and then you see them post something else, and you're like, man, I want that too. So to me, it's like a friendly competition, and I don't really get too serious and like, you have that, so fuck you or whatever. You know, it's like
right.
I know some people do that, you know, some people are, but I'm not. I mean, I'm greedy in the sense that, you know, I want things for myself, but if I have something custom framed up or something, and someone, you know, that I consider a friend, like, is really looking for something, like I did with my spec not too long ago, that I got another spec in exchange for it, and if I can help somebody out and make somebody happy, why not? You know, it's as long as I can turn a profit or, you know, get something in return that's, you know, cool, or as cool or cooler.
Something. Yeah, I mean, there's no room to be like spiteful or anything like that. I mean, there's plenty of, I mean, except for the deceased people, there's plenty of stuff to go around. Even them, there's plenty of, the stuff comes up. Well, it comes around. I mean, one day you might say, oh, okay, well, there's no, I don't know, there's no Ed Gein's signatures, out on the market. If you want to get one, you got to pay like $5,000 for it. And that's the only way. And then next thing you know, a month later, you might find 2 or 3 of them being offered up, by 2 different people. And that's a couple times I've shot myself in the foot because I bought something for triple the price and I see it a month later, same type of deal, same type of item for half the price or even less than that. And I'm like, damn, I could have probably just waited. But see, that's the thing. You never know. You never know if that piece is around or what the case may be. So that also makes it fun too. It gets frustrating, but it's a fun frustration,
Right. And it's funny because a lot of the pieces, I'll get something and I'll have it for a week or so and I'll, resell it, or I'll sell something to somebody and they'll sell it within a week and that person will sell it in 2 weeks. Like, things float around all the time. Like, people are always selling things and like, oh, that looks familiar. Like, I got rid of that a few months ago or a few years ago. Or so.
How about that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty funny thing that happens a lot.
It all comes around. It all goes around, and it comes back around. I mean, that's one thing I've learned about this hobby too is, you might miss out on something right now, but then a year from now or less or more, it'll come back around. The person will put it up, or you'll find something very similar to what it was, and you'll get another crack at it. And that makes it fun as well, because then you can kind of just keep searching and keep talking to like-minded people in the hobby and, track the piece down that you're looking for. It's fun. It's fun to me. It's fun.
Right. It is fun. Yeah. Not too long ago, I tracked down a House of a Thousand Corpses, like, limited edition collectibles with a Rob Zombie COA in there signed. And that was like my first horror toy collectible. And I was pretty stoked with that. And in regards to that stuff, what's the market like? I know it's not only horror toys, but like busts and posters and autographs.
Yeah, I got away from the horror stuff and kind of concentrate on the true crime stuff. But no, they're very similar. They're very similar in the way of how collecting and market value. Now, what I collect as far as horror is anything goes. I collect masks, posters, autographs, T-shirts, action figures, artwork. I mean, you name it, I collect it. If it's related to horror movies, I'm basically, want to get my hands on it. I have a whole section in my horror cave of just busts, half busts. Just basically, it's just a head of the horror character, whether it be Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, what have you. Some of them are made out of latex. Some of them are made fully solid resin, and they're professionally painted. And these things can go for anywhere from $300, $400, $500 to $1,000, depending on the rarity. How many of them are made? Is it one of a kind? Off the top of my head, I have called a Walking Death bust. It's a Michael Myers bust that Sam McCain created, and he's since passed away several years ago, but he only made a few of them, and he ran a website called horrorsanctum.com. Now that he's deceased, and he has, I want to say he had some type of lock on them where no one else could make them or anything like that. I want to say like a copyright type of thing. I'm not afraid to admit I paid about $1,500 on it, I think, at the time, a couple years back. And, it's just a sick bust. I know people in the horror community, they try and get their hands on it, and I came across it. And like you said earlier, sometimes people don't have that kind of money sitting around to buy something like that. Kind of, jumped at the chance. When I saw it come up on one of these horror forums, I snagged it. But it's the same relating to true crime, I mean, I started off collecting horror, and I've been watching horror movies since I was 6 years old. I mean, I was watching Child's Play,
Right.
Halloween.
Yeah, I was as well. Yeah. Our dad raised us on horror movies.
My parents would say, "Aren't you?" And they would let me watch them, and they'd say, "Don't you have nightmares?" And I said, "No, it's fun. It's like a rush, Even back.
Exactly. Yeah. Huh.
So, and that's what I did. I started out, and then once I got, into my, late teens, early 20s, I found out that you could actually buy action figures that are horror related. So I started collecting action figures by NECA Toys, McFarlane, all these different companies make them. But it's just like anything else. They put out a line, and then they discontinue them. So, you might get something back in 2001 that they stopped making, and it might have costed might have ran you about $30 back then. Now it's well over $100. So it's just like anything else. The harder it is to find or more sought after, the value of it will go up. And as time went on, I really took the horror collecting really like a drug addict would take to drugs. I mean, I kind of went crazy on it, and then started my websites. And then after that, I was contacted by a true crime dealer and said, "Hey, would you be interested in an Edward Spreitzer letter set?" And I'm like, "Who's Edward Spreitzer?" Like, I had no clue. And I looked it up on the internet and found out he was one of the Chicago Rippers. And it just kind of blew my mind that you can actually buy this stuff, and, that it was for sale, that you could actually get your hands on this type of stuff. So that's kind of where it all started for me, was a Edward Spreitzer Ripper letter set. And then, from then on, interlocked horror collecting in with the true crime collecting.
Right. And they kind of go hand in hand, especially the horror is like the horror villains and the serial killers and all this, or any of them are the real life monsters, like I believe there was a guy actually in California. He got inspiration from some movie and dressed up like a werewolf and stabbed his ex-girlfriend and her then boyfriend. I forget the guy's name. He's on a California death row. And there's a guy in England who got inspiration from Scream and wore the ghost face mask and killed somebody with that scythe or whatever. So it's,
yeah. See, I mean, I'm going to have to look that up, by the way. But I know,
there's been a lot of like recreation, like murders of horror villains, which is pretty terrifying, honestly. I mean, if you think about it, like I wouldn't want to be the one on the receiving end.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where the connection is. That's where it lies. Is, I mean, Ed Gein. He was the inspiration for Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, all of them. Then you got Amityville Horror, with the DeFeo and all that. And then I also heard that Danny Rowland, Gainesville Ripper, was the inspiration for Scream also.
Oh, yeah, for Ghostface. Yeah, I did hear that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the ideas come from somewhere, and it's just, you got a movie director, and it wouldn't surprise me if they go off of these cases, and
that's the thing, because Hollywood couldn't come up with something as crazy as let's say like Ed Kemper or BTK. They actually take it from like real life cases, which is the crazy thing in itself. Like all these movies, like things like this has really happened in life, and kind of like
what's the thing? Real life is stranger than fiction. It's
right.
How can you can't even make this stuff up? I mean, that's what's so intriguing about these cases is, wow, he, chopped this guy up and served them as barbecue burgers in a road construction lunch truck, or something like that. It's just, it blows my mind.
Right.
Like how can somebody do these types of things? And
that's the whole that's the whole thing behind collecting and the whole fascination. Like wanting to know or wanting to understand why they do what they do, and preserving this history, if you may, whether it's artwork, documents, photos, because these guys aren't going to be around forever, and who knows why they did it. And even if there's little trails of why they did it here and there, or, I know the guys that I talk to during visiting, they will speak about it there, but nothing in writing, nothing over the phone. And I write and collect, because I'm genuinely interested, in the human mind and the psychology and what makes someone take a rifle or a knife and go and kill their family, or go kidnap, rape, and kill a woman, come back home to their family, have dinner, kiss their wife and kids, go to bed, like nothing happened. And that's what I want to know, like what makes somebody do that. And that's why I do what I do and why I write to so many people. And
yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it as well, is, it's history. It's dark history. It is, and I'm not afraid to admit I'm into weird, creepy stuff.
right,
I'm into
right,
these and horror and darkness. I'm into dark art and everything. I think, when some of these people do their artwork, you could see, it sometimes is more powerful than a letter would be, because they're actually spending hours upon hours on a piece of artwork, and they're putting what's in their mind out as an image. Images are worth 1,000 words, or whatever they say. To have a piece of art or handprints or hand tracing, something that one of these people put together, it's almost like a museum type history, like a museum piece. And I got people that come by my home all the time, friends and different people that, come over, and they'll it's like a museum. They'll say, well, who's this Dr. Death, or something like that. I'm, oh, Jack Kevorkian. Okay. Well, let me tell you a little bit about him, and conversation piece at that as well. So fascinating at every, angle that you look at it from.
right. It is. It is. And I mean, and like people will come over to my place and they'll be like, who's this guy? I'll be like, no, this is John Wayne Gacy. He raped and killed 33 young boys. Here's Whitey Bulger. He's a mafia boss, and here's another Gacy, and this and that. And it's interesting to have like the whole different cultures and backgrounds of these, criminals and people that have done atrocious things, and to preserve what will one day be history, and the things that I preserve, what I'm talking about is the artwork, documents. I really don't frame or display letters unless they're, somebody dead or very high profile, such as like a Ridgway or something like that. But
right. You'll be surprised. I know you probably have seen this in your time in the hobby. I've actually shown different friends and, people that have been, come over my house and don't really know me. Maybe my wife's friends come over. And the first thing that I'm thinking in the back of my mind is, oh, great, they're going to see like some of my artwork on the wall, that there's something wrong with me. They're going to just say, oh, this guy, he collects serial killer artwork. What the hell's wrong with him? But, I'd say 9 times out of 10, they're not. That's the opposite reaction. They're actually fascinated. They're like, wow, really? This person did this, and you have this? Where'd you find this? Where'd you get this from? I didn't even know you could get this type of thing. And they're more curious and fascinated than, what you would expect. Oh,
Right. That's funny you say that, because I was recently at this little conference training, and it was mostly all cops, honestly. And the guy introduced me, and he's like, yeah, he does something very unique, blah, blah, blah. He talked about memorabilia, and I'm thinking like, man, these cops are going to eat me alive. And they were very like fascinated and curious. And so it was like a much different reaction than what I expected. I thought it was just going to turn into death stares.
Yeah, and like you're the bad guy, and like, how dare you? But yeah, no, 9 out of 10 times it's the opposite. I get a lot of times, oh, well, why do you collect this type of stuff? What's your attraction to true crime? And then I basically tell them, why, the historical point of view of it all and just the fascination of the cases. But yeah, I mean, it's not as far out there as a hobby than one would think. It's, I think if more people knew about it, more people would be, collecting. I know a lot of my horror friends and colleagues and online, they're slowly starting to check into the horror collecting or the murderabilia, true crime collecting type of avenue. I think the hobby's going to grow. I think it goes up and down from what I understand. I mean, I only started collecting true crime maybe about 3.5 years ago, and I've seen it kind of go up and down. Facebook blew up with the different websites or with the different pages, selling pages on Facebook, and that's bringing people in like crazy. I'm not too sure if the dealers really like that too much because you can get really good prices on things through Facebook. But then again, if they go through dealers, they can get something right away, something that they've been looking for. But I think it's going to blow up again. I really do. I think only a matter of time before the new generation gets into it. And
right. Yeah, that's I have a feeling about that too. I think millennials might be the next thing that puts murderabilia on the map. Who knows? Maybe
this way too,
maybe
with all
the next thing after Tide Pods. You never know.
Yeah. And listen, and think of it this way too, with all the politically correctness stuff going on in this day and age. I know when I was a youngster, I would, you would kind of want to not be in with the normal. You kind of wanted to have your own style and be, do your own thing. So when it gets to the point where, you're being told what you can buy or what you can do and what you can't do, for me, one thing for me that I've always said, well, hey, if I like it, I'm going to, I'm going to do it. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to, if it's something I'm into, who's anybody else to tell me that that's not, politically.
Right. I gave up on what people thought about me a long time ago when I started doing this because I've lost friends, I've gained friends, and it is what it is kind of thing, like it's an interest to me, it's a fascination.
If it makes you happy, if it makes the person happy, then that's all that matters,
Right.
What anybody thinks. And that's the way I go with it. Whether it's the horror, on my YouTube channel, I got people saying, oh, look at all your dolls in the background. Look at all your dolls and your, little childish, action figures. And I don't even buy into that. They're just fishing for, they're just trolls. They're just fishing for a reaction, and
I'd reply back, you mean those money bags?
Yeah, exactly. If they really knew the work behind some of this stuff, I mean, I literally had to increase the value my home insurance liability for my house because I literally got thousands of dollars worth of collectibles and artwork and everything else in my one room. And I don't care. I could say this on the podcast because I got round the house cameras and surveillance bars on my basement windows on the inside. I got a fortress here at the house, but
right.
I'm not worried about anybody. Oh, he heard you on there. You got this in your house. You shouldn't have said that. But the house is all well fortified, I guess you could say. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, money bags. I mean, if anything, God forbid, if I ever had to sell, get some money, I could sell just a few things in this room and get, a couple $1,000 easy overnight, as a matter of fact.
Right. Yeah, I know the feeling. If I'm ever in a squeeze or something, I can just, if I want to get rid of this Manson or this Warnos or whatever, there's things that sell quick like that all the time.
Oh yeah, and it's an investment. It's at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's just like having a autographed baseball from Babe Ruth or something like that. I mean, you don't have to go far to sell it. You could just post something, and next thing you know, by the end of the week, you could make a couple grand right off the top of the bat. Just that quick.
Right.
So, it's got its advantages there as well.
Right. I mean, there is money to be made, but like you said earlier, the market is hit and miss, and right now it's not doing too good. But
also, like the stock market, now's the time to buy low. You buy all the stuff now, and then when it comes back around, or say some of these current people die off, then their stuff's going to go up in value a little bit more. And then the new collectors that come in, they will be willing to pay a little bit more for someone who's deceased or something. So there's that old saying, buy low, sell high. You buy now, and then later on it, you can hopefully recoup plus get profit.
Right. And there is a lot of profit to be made if, you're getting the right things. And there was just some Rich Ramirez letters that just popped up the other day in my group, I think for like $25 a pop. And
yeah, I saw that. That's pretty insane.
I mean, you're not going to get rich, but you're gonna make a good profit on things like that, So
yeah, it's all who you know too, because some of these collectors. I met a guy a couple months back. He bought a Gacy painting for a couple $100 many years ago, and he still has it. And he actually said to me, how much do these things go for nowadays? And I told him, I said, this, I think he had a Pogo. I said, well, you get a couple $1,000s for it for the right person. And he was literally almost knocked him out of his chair. Like he couldn't believe how much, it was worth. And that he could get for it. And if I didn't tell him that, now I kind of shot myself in the foot, but if I didn't tell him that, he probably would have sold that Gacy for just a couple $100 and thought he made did a good deal on it, So you got the old school collectors and that don't really know what the stuff is worth either, and they might have it, whatever it may be, lying around and just think, oh, well, I can only get a couple $100, but then you get the right person, buys it, turn around, flip it, and make some real decent money off of it. But it's all who you know, and it's all, what you know.
Right.
I feel like I'm telling you, I'm not trying to tell, I know you know the game in and out, but I'm just saying, basically what I'm referring to is what I've learned over the past couple years of how this whole thing works. And it did. It's definitely a business. It's a hobby. It's a business.
Yeah, and it's funny too, because a lot of with like letters and artwork, and it's pretty much like the prices for me, I pretty much just make up my own prices to what I think I would pay or a collector would pay or something like that. I mean, so it's funny, like people are always like, what is this worth or that worth? It's like, well, if only there were a Beckett's guide for serial killer autographs.
And then it's all about fairness too, because if somebody's fair with somebody and they, okay, they might have a price set and then they lower it down for somebody or, help someone out, that person's more likely to come back to buy something else because they had a good experience with the person. And that's the way you kind of, getting good with clientele is, you're kind of there for them and they make it a good experience where they want to come back and do more business. If someone's just, and these people too, they're in this business. If someone's just stuck on their price and they won't budge and and they won't work with you, then it's a turnoff. You don't even want to deal with them. You just say, okay, well, I'll just go elsewhere. I'll just go find some, the same type of item or piece from someone else. I might have to wait a little while, but, at least I'm not going to really overpay for something or, someone who's not willing to work with me over it,
Right. And
from a collector's point of view.
Yeah. We could end this with one last thing, a dream piece of something you would, dream of having in your collection.
Well, I was hoping you would ask me for my wish list, my dream piece. I heard that on some of your previous guests. Yeah, I have it. I even wrote it down. I didn't have to write it down, but I was hoping you would ask me that question. I would love to get an Albert Fish signature. That would be my dream piece. I would love to have, I don't care if it's on a document or if it was just, if it was faded out and you could barely see it, but it was there. That would be my dream piece to have. I would frame that bad boy and I would, kind of, he's the real OG of this, of this whole hobby. I think he's just a sick individual.
Right. Yeah, I think mine would be Fish or Pansram or Holmes or Jack the Ripper, if Jack was ever identified.
Yeah, but then at the same time, how could you put a Panzram, like what does his signature even look like? Like I would have to, I don't even know. Like I know what fish, I've seen some fish signatures before, but how would you, the last thing I'd want to do is pay for something that's not even legit. But at the same time, yeah, if you could prove without a doubt that it was, authentic, hell yeah. I mean, that would be some of those iconic historic pieces. That's where it's at. That's where the real, paramount collections, that's something that separates somebody's collection from the others. You know what I mean? Sets it apart.
Right. Yeah, just the piece that just definitely pops out. Like mine would have to be the Warnos robe. Definitely, like that's my favorite piece. And even though I don't have it displayed, everybody always wants to see it, and I've been meaning to get it displayed for years now, actually.
Yeah, I did see that in your collection. That's pretty creepy. Have you ever? Let me ask you. Have you ever worn a robe?
Yes. To be honest, I have. The first night I got it, I was like, I'm just so curious. So I tried it on, and sure as shit, it fit me. And believe it or not, I had a woman, a plus size model in California. I lent it to her because we were like, really good friends. And she did a photo shoot with it, which is kind of cool, and they were like published photos. And so kind of like an interesting little thing to add to that.
That's pretty neat. And you know what? I swear, I know just wearing something that was, that someone like Warnos wore before. I mean, there's got to be some type of energy that you pick up from that. I'm not trying to sound all, kooky and weird out there, but I mean, even just like looking at, like, I got a couple Gacy paintings, and just looking at them, you get this like vibe from them. You get this, like I said, I'm not trying to sound all paranormal, but you do kind of get like a strange feeling, and it's hard to even explain when you see some of this stuff.
Well, it's funny you say that, because a lot of people feel that way when they come here, but people are always like, "Aren't you scared to sleep in here with all this, especially with the dead animals in jars?" And like, no, not really. Like I'm used to it, I guess. At first, it creeped me out when I first started collecting when I was like 19, and I was like, man, these serial killer like paintings and hair is kind of like creepy. But I'm just kind of like, like I just have like hand tracings and handprints and fingernail clippings and bags just laying on the ground and on the floor and everywhere. So.
At the end of the day, they are all inanimate objects, I guess that's what they're called. But it's just that, just looking at something like a piece of art or, a robe that she wore, it gives you that feeling in the back of your mind, like, whoa, I can't believe that I'm actually wearing this that she wore every night, in her prison cell or whatever it was,
Right.
It just gives you that, like, wow. It's like signatures. I'm a big collector of signatures. It's my two favorite things, signatures and artwork. With signatures, they sign, that's their signature. That's their name that they sign from their hand. And it's, not duplicated. I mean, that's right from them. It's unique. That's, to me, that's where it's worth weight in gold. Just having something that one of these fellows did, and just displaying, and I'm, with the displays, displaying it properly, with triple matting and museum glass to protect it and to really make it pop out, that's the whole fun of it. And it's creepy at the same time. It's creepy as hell.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really like a good feeling to have like a nice, like, wall and of all this creepy shit. And I love it. I love having a wall of like, here's Danny Rowland, here's Sowell and Bittaker and blah blah blah. And it's, kind of like all the guys are here. And if only the walls could speak, and all these different people that are up here, some dead, some alive, and just all the crimes that these people have committed is just atrocious and horrible and creepy when you think about it. Like, this guy took his time to do this painting, who also, raped and killed 13, 14, 15 women.
Yeah, and and they take some hours upon hours of painting and
Right,
drawing.
there's a guy that I talked to. He takes 2 months to do his art, and it's on 18 by 24 paper.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Is it? I'm not even going to say his name, but yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. But it's really good artwork. I mean, it's amazing that comes in.
Right,
And
right, yeah, and taking so much time and like effort, and it takes this guy's emotion and feelings, and when he's upset, he puts that into his art, and
exactly, it tells a story, is what it does. It's telling a story from an anti-hero, like I said in the beginning. They're anti-celebrities. They are celebrities for the wrong reason. But that's why it's good to kind of reflect on these cases, so people can learn from them and study them, and even try and put together a game plan on how to prevent some of this stuff from happening in the future.
right, yeah, that's always been the thing. That's especially this day and age with mass shootings. How do we prevent it? How do we stop it? And with
Yeah, they're all
especially with serial killing too. And I don't think they're ever going to stop serial killing unless they could, do what that in that movie where they can predict crimes before they happen and lock them up. But a thought crime, they call it.
Oh yeah, the one with Matt Damon. Yeah, it's pre-crime, and they can predict it before it happens. Yeah, that, what, I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't too far away in our future of something like that. A quantum computer kind of predicting, someone doing something. I mean, with the amount of cameras and everything, and the way how fast these computers are nowadays, and I mean, I think that's backwards. I mean, I think technology can be a bad thing as well as a good thing, but at the same time, you wouldn't want Big Brother watching over. People need their privacy, but at the same time, there has to be checks and balances too.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to see the next few years, which way everything goes. I mean, like you said, with the mass shootings and the constant feeling of wars coming or going, and different things. I mean, it seems like everything is just speeding up to the fact that like it's leading to something really big. I'm not trying to sound all doom and gloom here, but I mean, it seems like something's going to happen at some point in time. Let's see where it goes.
Right.
Live the life.
Right. Maybe one day they'll figure it out, or maybe one day something horrible will happen. Thousands of people will be killed in a mass shooting in America or something, and something will happen. I think something big has to happen before they actually do something. Hundreds of kids have to die, or something drastic has to happen. That's what I think is going to happen, and that's what's going to create a chain of reaction of events that happen after that. But that's personally what I think will happen eventually.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say? It's like Columbine was one of the first ones that I can remember in my time, and since then there's been tons more. I don't even know a number, but there's been so many more school shootings and mass shootings since then. And I don't know if gun confiscation or anything like that's the answer. I'm not afraid to admit I'm pro-gun, but at the same time, I think there needs to be some kind of checks and balances. I don't know what they are, but I think there needs to be some kind of something to go along with everything, to whether it's legislation somehow or something's got to be done. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah. It's
legal age of owning a gun. I mean, you can get one at 18 years old now, but then again, if you can go join the army and the military at 18 and go in and fight for your country, but at the same time, I think there, has to be something there that, and I don't know what the answer is, but there has to be something. An 18-year-old or under can't go get a shotgun or an AR-15. They need to be at least a certain age or have an adult or something with them or something. I don't know where to go with it, but you can't just have some little psychopath going into a gun shop and buying weaponry and then going and shooting up his school because he was bullied or some stuff like that, you know. But there's got to be something there that, you know, society, at least in America, can do to prevent firearms getting into the wrong hands, you know?
Right, definitely. Well, we can end that there, and if you want, you can plug your social media. I know you have YouTube, and I think
yeah. Sure. Yeah, so on social media, on all accounts, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, just search up The Horror Stash. If you put that in the search, it'll definitely come up. And then as for my true crime collecting Instagram page, that's Casey's, CASEYS _true, TRUE _crime, CRIME _collection, COLLECTION. And that's where I showcase all my true collection. That's all I have for you, Andrew. I'm glad that you were able to have me on tonight. You know, it's always a pleasure talking to you on podcast or on the phone, or just, you know, via messenger on the phone. Thank you for including me on your podcast. It's really, truly an honor and a privilege.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate your time. I know you're busy between work and being a dad and hulking it up in the gym and finding your next horror collectible and all that.
Yeah, thank you, man. I do. I really appreciate you having me on. And yeah, I mean, we'll have to do this again sometime. Hopefully I, met up to your standards here.
Yeah, definitely. And, we'll definitely do it again. As we've talked before, all the savage, heinous shit will not end anytime soon. So there will be more people to write and more people to talk about and so on and so forth.
Never ending, man.
Right. All right. Well, thank you again, and hope you have a good night.
All right, you too, man. Take it easy, all right?
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I don't regret this. I wrote the fucking book with